right, guys, it's another episode of Movies and Minutes. And this week I have my good friend Zoe on, who's,
Hi.
An up and coming model. If you don't watch out for her, she's gonna bam hit you right in the face when she's famous everywhere, right? It's always the ones you don't expect, except for like now that I know you are, I kind of expect it. So I don't know.
I mean,
So wait, what?
I barely expected it.
See, well, that's good. That's why it's working.
Mhm.
Low expectations, easy to overcome.
Yeah.
But not shocked at all. Very like beautiful person inside and out. So, and I feel like the best models are the ones that aren't just a pretty face, but there's a goal, idea, ambition, things that they want to get done, right? You know what I mean? Like everybody loves Tyra because not only is she pretty, but she also has ideas and things going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like also being a model, you have to be willing to do like the weirdest things. Like I literally just got back from a photo shoot a couple hours ago where it was a little field but there were bugs everywhere and I had to be willing to
okay.
Like I had to go in there and get bit up, but it's like it made for killer.
It's the pain that you have to work on for your craft, right? These are the sacrifices we make.
Oh yeah, we do.
I got worried there for a second because you said weird, and I'm like, okay, where's she going with this? But bugs in the field. All right.
I walk into it, I'm like, okay. We're gonna back out real quick.
I just gotta go to the bathroom, and then like somebody hears your car driving away.
Yeah, like, oh, sorry, I need to go walk my fish.
That's a great one. I love that. So 3 movies I gave you trailers for this week. When I asked you to be on, I know you had not some guidelines, but you had some things that you're like, oh man, these are the movies I like. I'm like, okay, well, I'll slide you at least those things, and then maybe one more on top of that. So, yeah. And I think I delivered. We'll see. We'll see if I can convince you or keep you away from any of these. Well, actually, before we get there, something I do usually ask my guests, because I know what you told me, but our audience doesn't. What type of movies do you like?
So I love kind of horror, psychological thriller, but I'm also like a giant Disney adult. Like I'm actually a character princess for kids events because I just love everything Disney and magical. So Disney movies, horror, psychological thriller. I do like a good comedy every once in a while, but honestly, that's thanks to my boyfriend. He loves all that stuff and recently kind of do a little bit more. So,
and I mean, I feel like who doesn't like a good comedy once in a while? You need a laugh.
Yeah,
you gotta like mix it up,
make you laugh. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of inspired you into that like Disney love? Is there like any specific movie or character that did that for you, or is it just like a tradition growing up?
So when I was little, my parents were also big with like showing me Disney stuff because they did it to my sister. They were just big on Disney, big on magical princesses, things like that. My favorite princesses were actually Ariel from The Little Mermaid and Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Funny because Ariel is like one of the most often characters I play. So it's just like, it's just circle. Like, it's just nice. Yeah. And mixed with my acting experience, because I did go to school for acting and things like that. It really understand like how magical these characters really are and how much work gets put into these Disney films to make them so magical.
That is really awesome. And in a weird way, like, when a kid watches some of those movies as a kid, they kind of want to grow up to be their heroes. And it's hard to grow up to be a mermaid, but I mean, you're clearly doing it,
Yeah.
And you get to do the character stuff. So
yeah, more than just being a mermaid. I mean, whenever I do my acting classes with people, I always tell them, when you are looking into a film and you, for example, let's say you find the villain, the character that you absolutely hate, like you can sit there and you're like, I want them dead. They're doing their job because they're causing a reaction out of you to make you that much. All the same as if you love a character. Like everybody loves Ariel. The Ariel, the Black Little Mermaid. Everybody loves her, and for good reason. She's a killer. She's got that like Disney aura to her, and she understands
the voice, the pipes. She can sing.
Yeah, and it's even past the singing, she understands who Ariel is as a person. Ariel was one of the very few Disney princesses that did not go into it wanting a guy. She just wanted to go explore things. to learn new things.
She just happened to stumble and find him while trying to explore the world.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think that is truly where the magic lies. Because, it's my belief that love kind of shows up when you least expect it to, and that's literally what happened for her. She get legs, and she was willing to give up even her own voice to her voice to speak up for herself, to do it, and then she did it, and just ended up, oh my goodness, here's love right in my lap.
That's awesome. Did you now have you? I mean, it's not one of the movies we're talking about today per se, but did you get a chance to see the new Little Mermaid yet?
Not yet. I'm trying to
highly recommend, especially if it's like a childhood like love for you, because you'll see all those things that you liked as a kid, and they added enough differences where you're like, wow, this is like, I can enjoy this in the same way that I like the original, but in new ways too.
Yeah, I feel like it's always really interesting to see new perspective on things, and especially this film, because I even heard I've heard rumors, I don't know if they're true, but I've just heard like certain songs are left out, certain things are put in, like there's just a different take on things all in all. And even
if I remember right, I don't know which ones were left out. I mean, I remember all the big ones that were left in, but they added 4 new songs that I like. As I listen, I'm like, I don't remember this, I definitely know that Eric did not have a song, and he has a song now, and like there's some other stuff. Yeah. So I mean, but they maintained all her songs.
They changed the
thing, but yeah, they're
that was really cool. They changed like pitches and certain notes, because I performed with so we have a live action mermaid. She's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But we actually did a premiere out in Louville for
awesome,
where we had the classic Ariel, which was myself, and our live action Little Mermaid, which was our friend Destiny. And we sang Part of Your World together, but I didn't want to told me, we're singing Bailey's version. I said, wait, is there a different version? And she's like, it's the same, but like there's different. Okay, I'm just gonna sing Jodie Benson's version underneath you because I don't want to outshine you. So like I'm just gonna quietly do this. And when I was listening to it, gosh, like girl can bell. Like Halle Bailey go. I was like, that's so fun. Like I love that. I can't ever hit that. But, like, good for you.
I think it's intentional too, because I think they kind of like listened once they had her, they listened for her, and then they kind of tailored it to her. But I could be wrong. But I mean, Alan Menken knows what he's doing. He's like a music Disney genius. So and we yeah. So to our movies today, what was the first trailer I gave you?
Flash.
All right, Flash. Okay. What did you think after watching the Flash trailer?
Okay, so I'm gonna preface my thoughts for anybody who is like Marvel, DC, superhero fan whole thing. I am educated on this. I do certain things, and I'm there and be like, okay, I love Iron Man, I love Batman, whatever. But I couldn't even do which one belongs in DC and Marvel. Like I can't do that.
You're totally fine. I think the trailer gives you the logo, but yeah, I mean, just looking at them, you're like, who's this?
Yeah, like which one do you belong to? Which one is this? Like, but from what I saw, I really liked initially, and this is just taking into my own skills with acting experience and kind of going into a character life. I feel like so often superheroes and villains even are portrayed as just these high and mighty beings that just have superpowers. Oh my God, Flash, lightning, wow, scary, Thor, hammer. But you don't ever really see the underneath. You don't see things that happen behind closed doors, like who they are as a person. You only see them as a hero, and that's all they are. And with Flash, I found it really interesting that the first thing I noticed was that there was, stuff about his childhood from when I was going back to kind of fix things. So we're already going in realizing that this person who we only know as the Flash, or in this movie, if always his name, again, not educated. But I think it's very interesting that we go through life just seeing Barry, and then later seeing how he became the Flash and how he's trying to fix things that happened in his life, that he was a real with real life events that happened to him. because I feel like so often, I mean, even upcoming actors, like if anybody who's listening is an upcoming actor and they're like, oh man, like I would love to play the Flash. I would love to be an awesome superhero. Those actors put in a lot of hard work, because coming from somebody who used to step into those characters, you have to remember that they are people. You're not just some alternate being who's a fantasy character and that's it. Like you're a fairy, vampire, whatever. And you're a real, you are a person. And people have feelings, they go through certain traumas, tragedies, things like that. And movies are all about bringing those things to light and bringing those things to your screens, to bring away things.
That's a really awesome like takeaway. And I mean, one of the things about superheroes, like just in general, like it's not the same for all of them, obviously, but they do all have a kind of a trauma that sort of like brings them to be who they are. Like Spider-Man lost his uncle, or Batman lost his parents. And Flash's story is not super different from that. Like he did lose somebody, but the difference that Flash has that some of the other heroes don't is, he can run so fast. He can run, forward in time, backward in time, and he kind of realizes, oh shit, I can, like you said, I can fix this. And the problem with that is, if he is who he is based on the trauma that he went through, what would he be without that trauma? And that's sort of a theme through that whole movie, that he sort of has to slowly learn that if I fix this thing, then I'm not me. I'm somebody totally different. And he meets the version of himself that exists without being the Flash and having the people that he lost and all those things. And it's super cathartic for him. He's like, oh shit, like I gotta go back and fix the fix now. And there's full disclosure, and I don't know if you've noticed any of this or caught any of it like in the news over the last 6 months or so, but the guy who played the Flash has had some issues in the news. Like Ezra Miller has done some like things and gotten in trouble. Like he like broke into a house. He was accused of some things. So he's not really being seen in a favorable light right now. And I'm not necessarily going to bat for him. But one of the things I will say, and you maybe can attest to this as an actress, there's a lot of people that don't want to go see this movie because they're like, I don't want to support Ezra Miller. And one of the defenses I've tried to kind of put to people is, okay, it's really easy to tear down the one guy who's not great, but is it good to tear down everybody else in that film who worked hard, who, whether they were other actors, other, like people that helped make it happen, producers, directors, scene people, anything. And I don't know if everybody will take that lesson away from me saying it, or, other people saying it. But I think it's worth a watch, especially if people like superhero movies. You don't have to you don't necessarily have to love an actor or like actress outside of their roles if they do good at those roles. You know what I mean? Like you should be able to separate, Zoe from Zoe the mermaid.
Right. At the end of the day, these people are just characters. They are characters. It's telling. And I feel like the same thing with the new Aquaman movie with Amber Heard in the light.
Same idea, very same idea. Like with like all the stuff with her, like people are gonna not want to go see it because of, I think they cut her down to only being in the movie for 10 minutes. But I don't want to give her money for 10 minutes. Right.
And it's like at the end of the day, to anybody who might have hesitancy seeing those kind of movies because you don't want to support somebody, I can validate that. I can understand that. But at the end of the day, these people already made money at the end of filming. Like they don't
that's what I've tried to say.
Right. They already made their money. They already did it. And there are going to be so many millions of people that go and see it anyway. I mean, take the live action Little Mermaid again. I mean, people were so against this. I mean, I even was skeptical at first. I was like, this kind of just seems like Disney's being lazy and not making their own original Black characters to me.
Right.
But then as I started watching the whole thing kind of come together, I haven't even seen it yet. And now I'm like, okay, now I'm excited to see it. Like now I kind of want to see it because it's becomes more than just the point of whoever was trying to make. I don't even know anything about the guy who plays Flash and everything that he's been doing, but just based off of the film itself, I mean, I can already tell that the story feels more real than any other superhero movie I've ever seen before. And I think a lot of people, although they wouldn't want to support him, have to realize that eventually he's already being supported in a way. Like
Right.
he's already paid for. There's probably people who are already have seen it or going to see it. This movie is going to be seen. It's not just because, if you have an opinion that something shouldn't be seen, it's just not going to be seen. But everybody's entitled to their own. So I mean, I feel like
of course.
Yeah, it's money. If you don't want to spend the money to go see it, don't spend the money to go see it. Wait till
and one of the other things I try to, well, yeah. One of the other things I try to point out for some people too is, I mean, like, I know sometimes like directors and things will get extra, like when they get, like high box office numbers, but really truly, if you're like boycotting a movie for one person and there's like lots of other people in it, really the only person that hurts is your local theater, because like you said, it's already been paid for. They paid the fee to get it, whether you sit down and watch it or not. So at that point, it's really just like, are you spiting your local theater when you think you're really spiting the big actor? Probably.
Right. Give it like this, if you had a son or a daughter, if you had a child, and they grew up to be in a movie, and let's use Amber Heard for instance. Like if I had a kid and they were in a film with Amber Heard, I don't like Amber Heard. Would I still go watch that film? Yes, because my kid's in it. I don't care who had more screen time. I don't care if I'm going to see more of Amber Heard than my kid. I'm still going to go because there are people that I like and there are people that I'm going to support, my kid or not even. I mean, Aquaman. I mean, Jason Momoa is an amazing actor. Like he's an amazing guy too. He's just an all-around good.
I gotta send you a picture after this. I got to meet him at Comic-Con like 2 years ago. The dude makes me feel short, and I'm 6'2".
He's
yeah, he is. He's like 6'6", and I think he was wearing lifts that day too. But yeah, I mean, they're supposed to. His movie's still supposed to come out around Christmas. We'll see if that happens or not. At which point I'll be like, all right, Zoe, the Aquaman movie's out. Go check it out.
Yeah, I will.
Male merman.
Male merman. No, he's such a good person. And it's like, yeah. I was telling my boyfriend about this earlier because we were talking about Aquaman. Yeah, like I don't. Amber Heard's in it, but I want to see it because Jason Momoa is in it, and like he's a really good actor. He's a person. Like if there's anybody I want to,
he's the fucking star. Like he's like the reason to go see it. Nobody's going to see Aquaman. Like nobody went and saw Aquaman 1 for Amber Heard. I mean, like let's be clear. I'm sure like if somebody liked her and they saw her and they're like, oh cool, Amber Heard, but like nobody was like, oh my god, I'm gonna go see that Jason Momoa movie for her.
Yeah,
like, come on,
like get real.
So I will tell you that the visuals in this movie are really stunning. A lot of times I kind of try to like when we're having these conversations on the pod here, I kind of try to let people know whether or not it's like something worth seeing in the theater versus at home. Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's just like, really good acting, but truthfully, you don't need to see it on the big screen. I think that this one, if you or you and your boyfriend decided you wanted to go see it, it's a big screen watch for sure.
For sure. And even though about most superhero movies being more like superhero-y and not like real stories, I feel like even then superhero movies are just better on screen because it makes you feel more like you're in it. Like I want to feel like I'm fighting in some dumpster or like some little alleyway. I want to feel like I'm there.
Right. And I feel like those were some of the things behind the whole like idea of like blockbuster films. I mean, like you go to the movie to like feel an experience, and like being there as you're watching the fight occur, right? You're like, oh wow, I'm part of this. I'm here. It's happening. Versus at home, where it's not, again, it doesn't make the movie bad, but it's kind of like if you can watch it at home, it's probably something you could just toss a coin and be like home theater. So
yeah, it's less of an experience. I feel like if you're going to the movies, because that's my boyfriend and I, we've been going to movies ever since we were together because he loves movies. I love movies. He actually has a little home theater that he built like a house for a little bit.
That's awesome.
He has a projector.
Awesome.
He used to actually make his own like previews. Like he used to like we would go to movie theaters. He still does this. We go to movie theaters and all the previews that are playing, he like writes them down for like trending, like what to put on his previews, and he makes his own, and they're actually really good. Like I've watched movies.
That's really cool.
In this theater room, and I have felt like I'm at the movie theater. Like I've just sat there and I'm like, this is really good.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
more people need those.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, hit my boyfriend up. Maybe he'll sell them to you. Make them custom.
Maybe.
But yeah, no, I think, and when I asked him why he does that, oh, my camera was freaking out. when I asked him why he does that, he was like, well, I feel like when you go to the movies, like it's an experience. Like you go there and you watch like what's to come next. Like you'll see something on the screen. You're like, I want to go see that. Like you're already kind of involved in what's going on from the moment you sit down in your chair.
So ironically, like, even though I sent you the trailers for movies today, I as a rule, I try to avoid watching them at home. I like seeing them on the big screen for the first time, so I can be like, oh my God, that's like something I haven't seen before. Cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That new Boogeyman movie. One that I'm not even kidding you. I again, horror fan, everything, psychological thriller fan. I love a good scare. Okay. I have not jumped to a movie, let alone a trailer, at all up until the Boogeyman. I remember sitting in the chair. I forget what we were seeing. But I was sitting in the chair with my boyfriend, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden there was some scene that happened, and I literally went like this, and I was like, and he's like, why are you laughing at that? You were just so scared you jumped. And I'm like, I want to go see that, because that gave me a reaction. And I'm like, a lot of times when you get so used to scary movies or any kind of movie, you start to kind of go into this like neutral slump where like, you know, you get comfy and you're like, okay, cool. This is nice. You forget that you're supposed to be participating and experiencing the movie. So
this is true.
Yeah, for once I was like fully involved in a long time in a scary movie that made me jump and be like, oh my God, scary.
Well, on top of that too, it's a Stephen King, which I mean, that should tell you everything you need. I will tell you this, after I do send you the link for the channel, the last episode, we talked about Boogeyman. Don't watch it. So that way you can go in fresh, not like spoiled or anything. And then we can talk about like what you thought of it, okay?
Yeah. I'll even maybe I'll have my boyfriend come in and join, because he actually really hates scary movies because he gets really scared. I'm just starting to get him into it, but like sometimes he like outwardly says how scared he is. Like he'll be watching something, he'll be like, I'm gonna scream, I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna scream right now, I'm gonna cry. And I'm like, you're fine.
Totally fine. That sort of is a good segue into our second movie of the day, which is, I'll say this, it's part horror, but it's also part comedy, because it's a horror comedy. From the beginning. So what was the second movie that I sent you?
The Blackening.
The Blackening. What did you think about the Blackening trailer?
Okay. I might be a little hesitant because I feel like I shouldn't even speak on this. Like I feel like
Woosah, it's okay. It's okay. It's a movie in theaters that anybody can go watch.
Okay. Well, for one, I feel like it's really funny that they're using that trope of like the Black person dies first.
Yeah.
Mainly because I have actually movies with Black characters that they don't die first. So
this is true. And then there's other like iconic horror movies where it happened. You're like, oh damn, why'd that happen? So
yeah. Well, I think that is why it's interesting that they're making a movie about it, because it's like, okay, first off, where did it stem from that Black people die first? But also, not only that, but where did it stem from? And how do you, like, what happens when they're all Black people? Like, do you just kill them all, like, at the same time?
Right. That's sort of like the weird premise of this. So if the Black person always dies first, what are you going to do when they're all the Black? You know what I mean? Like, you've got a 90... I think it's an hour. It clocked in at an hour and 40 minutes. So they all died right away. There's no movie. You're done, right?
Right.
So they can't do that. They got to break the tropes.
And I remember this one part in the trailer that really like made my head tilt a little bit, because I was like, what? It was when they were like, oh, choose who's the Blackest. And I'm like, so now you're making Blackness a competition? Like, I feel like if you're Black, like you're Black. Like that's it. That, you know, you might have different cultures that make you, but that's like being like, you know, compared to me versus taking somebody from Italy who's more Italian. Like I still have like Italian in my ancestry. Does that just make me not
less
as
Italian?
Yeah, like because I don't speak Italian. I mean, I feel like it's a little weird that they would even bring up the whole like, okay, judge who's the Blackest and we'll kill them. And I'm like,
so like on its face, this movie decides to take like everything that make people uncomfortable, that they don't necessarily want to talk about, and just puts it front face, right? So it imagines that like a group of Black friends go to a cabin in the woods for a weekend. Actually, it's a Juneteenth celebration weekend. So it's like whatever Saturday, Sunday, Monday of Juneteenth of whatever year it's supposed to be, some contemporary year, might be 2022, 2023. And somebody decides they want to start killing people, and the killer makes it like a racial thing. And at first you kind of just assume that it's going to be like some other race against Black people, and I'm not necessarily saying that that's not the case, but they also kind of give you cause to think, well, maybe it's somebody who is Black too, who kind of maybe doesn't feel Black enough.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of like the typical horror stuff, like the jumps and the mysteries and the things, but then there's also like just them saying the most outlandish stuff that they could say, and you trying to hold back the laughter, like, oh my God, this is funny, but also should I be laughing? Also, like, that whole vibe.
Yeah, I felt like I shouldn't be laughing at a couple of things that I was like, I don't know if I should laugh. But it also gave me this, I forget the name of the movie. I really do. And I have to look it up, bring it back later. But it did remind me of a movie I've watched before where like they do the thing. It's just like all white people. And it's not like it was just it found that very interesting that they kind of took their take on it, because I remember same thing, like they rented out an old cabin, started playing a game, but then all of a sudden like the cards got messed up, like somebody wrote a messed up card that like nobody wrote, like, oh, who wrote this? And everybody did. And it was something really messed up, like put your hand on a hot stove and burn it, like it was like something really weird and obscure, and if you didn't play the game, somebody died. But also play the game, somebody died. Like either way, you're losing. And I instantly,
sorry guys, you're fucked.
Yeah, I was like instantly thinking of that movie when I was watching this, but I was like, but this is actually really funny because it adds another layer to it of like, okay, so you're taking that trope of like, this type of person dies first, but now they're all types. So how do you decide? You could, there's more Black.
And I mean, the film explores that, and there's some other tropes that they try to break too. Like, and I think this happens in the trailer, but I can't remember. There's a part where they like talk about like, don't say it. We gotta split up. Oh damn, he said it. Because they're always the person to say, don't split up. So what happens if they're all there, but still somebody says, let's split up? They're all gonna complain about, we probably shouldn't have split up.
Yeah, I think this movie actually, like, so as I was watching the trailer more of it, because at first, like, again, I'm not really like comedy horror kind of person. That's like one genre that like, I don't know. I mean, I like Scream sequels, they're fine, but it's like not something that if you told me like, oh, we're gonna have a movie night, put in your request. It's not something that I would personally request. Watching this more, I was like, you know what, like this is really like I would do this because I want to see how they take this trope and make it so lighthearted, because I feel like, again, like you said earlier, they're taking really controversial topics that I don't think we should even be talking about. Like, it's not for us to be mentioning, but then it's like they bring it to such like a lighthearted kind of thing of like, listen, like, look, if we want to play, let's play the game. Like,
now here's the flip side to that though. Would it be more controversial if it was something that only Black people were allowed to talk about though?
I think, yeah, honestly, I do. I think that when you're making a movie like that, they have known it was going to be talked about by everybody, that's something that's going to be a discussion.
And hey, flattery is like, what's that? How's that expression go? It's like, I don't know. It's going to come to me later. Like something is the greatest form of flattery. I'm going to think about it when we're done, probably. Yeah. Well, so would you go see this, or would you? Maybe not, even if you didn't necessarily go to a theater to see it, do you think you would watch it?
I think I would,
especially if you don't normally watch horror comedy.
Yeah, I think I would go see it because I'm not really looking at it from the comedy aspect. I more or less want to see how they pull off this idea that they're trying to kind of raise question in of like, listen, if you're constantly going to make the Black person die every time, what happens when we make a film with all Black people, all Black actors? What happens then? It's like, I think that raises a question, not only for actually, just that trope, but just for Black actors in general in horror films. Because again, we don't really see them a lot. And if we do, they typically are the first to die. And I feel like, no matter what underlying reason that might be, I feel like just having more Black actors in this industry is so, so important because, we white people ultimately dominated when it came to movies. I mean, you think way back to like when movies were starting to be a thing, and you never saw anybody who was a different race or anything.
So there's one famous horror movie like in history for me, and I don't know if there's ones prior to it that would be as iconic, but Night of the Living Dead, which is like considered like the most iconic horror, not horror, but zombie movie, because it was like the first time like zombies were a thing. The hero in that movie was a black man. It was 1969, which is like, oh my God, unheard of, but George Romero was breaking barriers. But unfortunately, the guy like saves everybody in the end when like people come to check the house, like see if there's survivors. They're like, oh shoot, and they shoot him right in the head. And you never really know, is it because they thought he was a zombie, or was it because they lived in a time with a bunch of racists, who were just like, oh well, this guy's in somebody else's house, let's get him.
Yeah,
so, but
I've never film, but that's an interesting question to kind of raise, especially back in that time frame. Like, what was their reason for killing that character off? But that's,
and I think they leave it intentionally ambiguous, so you never really know. You kind of just have to sit there and think about it and get no answer. But
yeah, and I mean, I feel like now in films where they do make the black person die first, so because racism is still very much a thing. And it's like, it makes you think, like, why are they person off first? Why is this person the first killed first? Is it just because of their personality, or is it because of their race? So I think that this movie brings a different thought process to that, because now we're all, there's the equal playing field on that aspect. So why are they dying? Why are they the first ones to die? Is it because of their lack of thought? Is it lack of preparation? Is it their survival instinct, not being good enough? Survival of the fittest? There's so many different questions. It
could literally be something as simple. It was just the character that they were. Like, it was just the way that the story was set up, and had nothing to do with anything like that. But yeah, I'm sure it's different every time it occurs.
Yeah, but that's totally something that, I mean, even though it's not typically the genre I would see, I like to explore the different reasons behind why certain filmmakers and things like that will do that, because there's got to be a reason, right? And I think their reason could have easily been just for some lighthearted fun, or it could have been for something deeper, like, hey, let's not only include more black actors in this industry, but let's get rid of this stigma of black person dying first. Let's get rid of it, because guess what? At the end of the day, there's a better reason to kill people off. Like, if somebody's being the bad guy in the film, let's get rid of him. He's the guy who's trying to kill everybody else. All right, karma. Like, I feel
well, I'll say it was an enjoyable movie. It was good for some laughs and some scares. It's probably not going to win any awards, which, I mean, horror comedy kind of like, they know what they're doing. Like, they're there to get a laugh, and they're not necessarily, like, how often do we see, like, comedy movies like at the top of the Oscars, right? But it doesn't mean it's not a fun watch.
Yeah, and especially with like comedy horror or like teen slashers, that kind of vibe, there's only so much depth you can give to those. Because I mean, not even do my own shameless plug again, but I'm in a slasher that's being filmed in New York, and I don't want to give too much away. I'm not allowed to say too much here, but I basically play the hot dumb one, like the one, she doesn't have much substance, but when you're looking at her lines, and as an actor, you want to try to get the subcontext of everything they're saying, and like what they really mean, and like, because again, we're real people, we don't always say things that we mean point blank. Like, there's always underlying context, subtext,
of course.
And when I was reading her lines, I was starting to realize, like, there's only one area where she could be saying something else. Like, pretty much everything says, you can take it for what it is, because that's just who they made her be, and that's there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that she is
I mean, that's like a role that you see in a lot of like slasher movies, like over the history of them, and sometimes there's more, and sometimes sometimes they're the camp counselor that's jumping into the lake,
for no reason. But yeah, just for I won't say too much more about that film, because we start filming this Saturday, but all I will say is that it is called Introspection, so keep an eye out for it. To be very fun. It's going to be very fun to make. Yeah, but as far as I would totally see something like that. I mean, that's right up my alley, I think.
Well, then that will be a great segue into our last movie, which is also up your alley. Disney being your thing. They released a new Disney Pixar movie this week. It was called Elemental. Have you gotten a chance to watch that trailer?
I did watch the trailer, and I also, enough, I actually watched the trailer before.
Okay, so you were already like, it was already on your radar. You're like, I'm a Disney person. Like, oh my god, you were ready for it.
Yeah, I actually found a quiz. Like, which elemental character are you? And I'm like, I have not seen this movie yet, but I'm gonna take it anyway. I want that. I feel like because I've never seen the movie, I want to know who they would think that I would be in this movie. Like if I was a part of.
Well, see, now that I've seen it, you could tell me who the character was, and I can tell you if I think that would match.
They didn't give me a specific character. They kind of just told me like you would be, like where, like in what world would you live in. And I got water.
Okay. I will say a lot of the water people in this movie are very prone to crying, but like happy, sad, like just over anything. Like, oh hey, here's a present. It's a new painting. Thank you. Like, yeah.
I mean, I'm an anxious crier, so like if somebody makes me too nervous, I might cry. So,
Fair enough.
It makes sense.
So what this?
I thought I was gonna get fire, but that's because of I feel like everybody walks in with their own idea of what fire, water, earth would be like if they were people, and I feel like I was guilty of it. I felt like I thought that, I'm just like headstrong, I go for what I want. Like if I want something, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to chase after it. And I thought that would make me fire. But then when I plugged, personality traits and they're like, yeah, you're water. And I'm like, wow.
Fire. I can agree. Like fire makes me think like passionate, like, like strong, powerful. And that's not necessarily to say that the fire characters weren't this, but I think the thing that they tried to put at the forefront more than anything were the fire people were isolated. They felt like outcasts, because the other elements could all kind of interact with each other and not like hurt each other or be hurt. And it's like, well, if the fire person touches somebody with leaves, they're going to disintegrate. If they get touched by a water person or like an air person, they're going to, they're going to either explode or they're going to get, doused.
Yeah.
So
I love the whole concept movie for so many reasons. All of them coming to the forefront of my head is just like, but I think especially the whole elements don't mix. I think that speaks wildly to everything that we have going on in the world right now. I mean, everything. I mean, elements don't mix. People don't mix. Cultures don't mix. Is that what you're trying to say? Keep people away, because eventually we all know how Disney movies work. Okay. I don't want to spoil it because I've never even seen it, but we all know work. You're never going to have like a poor ending in a Disney movie. Disney magic of it. It's never going to be like, oh darn, everybody hates each other. Like bum, bum, bum. Like there might be still some things that are like, oh yeah, this is happening. They're going to find a good way to show you that people can do that. At least that's what I think. That's what could happen. That's
like part of like your takeaway.
Yeah, I feel like that the minute that the trailer was like, hey, listen, number one rule, elements don't mix. And now it's because, fire people have to stay away from water and they have to stay away from earth people, but like they can kind of make, and it's something that's almost like, it really emphasizes in more ways than even just culture. I mean, how many times can you say that you either were the kid or you knew the kid that was the outcast at every middle school, at every high school? That was that kid that sat alone at lunch, that felt like he couldn't mingle with his peers, that felt like he or she couldn't, talk with people the way that everybody else could. I can tell you personally, I've understood that feeling, feeling like you are almost powerless in a situation where you should hold a lot of power. And I think this is a really good movie, especially for children coming up, just kind of like how Inside Out was. I feel like it's all the same in the sense of like, it kind of gives children that aspect of like, listen, sometimes you don't have to be like this person. You don't have to be exactly like them. And you don't even necessarily have to mix well, as long as you learn that there's a balance to everything to make things ebb and flow, that's going to be what you want to stick to. You don't ever want to try to overpower anybody, and you don't ever want to try to have somebody kind of dim down your light on this. Because
that's funny you say that, because that's like one of the things the fire girl's dad gets really upset about anytime he thinks he's being watered down. He loses it. Water me down. That's like a big thing for them, so they don't like being marginalized. And they feel like they are. So I'll preface this by saying, of these three movies that I saw this week and I showed you the trailers for, it kind of went like on a 5-point scale here. Like Blackening was like a 3, again, enjoyable, totally fine. Flash was a little bit more. Flash was like a 3.5. I might be a little biased because clearly I like my superheroes, but Elemental, I gave a 5 to. Elemental has a lot of the things. It feels like we're coming full circle here. A lot of the things we talked about, like at the start of this video, subtext, layers, the story about finding love, but not when you're looking to find love. It's unintentional, through you stumbling through your life, and it's not all about the boy. It's not all about the girl, but sometimes they can still find each other. These all play parts, and there's just so much comparison to other things. But the weird part is, some people accuse movies of trying to push an agenda. They're like, oh, this is too woke, or oh, it's this or it's that. This movie gives you so many messages without ever telling you these messages, like things that you can take away. Who knows if the things that I took away are the things that you would take away or that somebody else would, but yet it's just so full of so many things, and yet it's whatever, it's like an hour and 45 minutes with a little short at the beginning of it. Spoiler alert for that. It is an up short. So if you liked the movie Up, it's got the dog and the old guy from Up, and it's about him trying to date now that he's now that he's accepted that his wife is gone, he's not an old curmudgeon alone anymore. That's kind of cute. But
and I feel like with this whole woke thing, people said that about Inside Out too, and I still to this day will use Inside Out even for my own. Like if I feel like my head is spinning out of control, I watch Inside Out because it shows you that at the end of the day, your brain is always looking out for you. Yeah, sure. Like this movie did it in a more kid-friendly way where it broke down each emotion into a person, into a character. But that's kind of how going through life feels. Like there are days where you feel like you don't even know why you're angry. You're just angry. And I feel like it was such a good lesson to again emphasize on balance, because when sadness was just kept being told to just don't touch anything, don't do anything, just literally stay in this corner, we don't need her sad. Sadness is a part of life. It's a cycle. If you're not feeling sad about things, you're gonna end up exploding at some point, whether it's anger, anxiety, something. You need to feel
more importantly, how can you appreciate happiness too if you don't know what the flip side of it is?
Exactly. And I feel like, especially when they both were gone, in that film, we saw her essentially go numb. We saw Riley go numb. And I feel like a lot of times what happens to kids, especially when they're being told by, whether it's abusive parents or friends or whatever, that they're not allowed to feel things. Like even that narrative of like when the mother was talking to her when they first initially moved, and she's like, oh, this has been so stressful and you've always just been our happy girl and we don't know how you do it. Like, thank you. You shouldn't be praising your kid for being happy about something that they don't necessarily need to be happy about, and I feel like Elemental is doing that same thing, just in a more broader aspect of like, listen to people, everybody's different. Try to water this person down. Don't try to make this person different. Don't try to become each people. Don't try to don't try to be water if you're fire. Don't try to be fire if you're water. Just balance with each other. Learn each other's strengths and weaknesses and learn to coexist all together in a way that you all can be happy and you all can be accommodated the best you can.
I think one of the other things this one does, especially with the relationship, but I think it kind of tries to remind you that it doesn't have to be strictly in a relationship, but the no big shock. I mean, from the trailer, like the fire girl and the water boy, are drawn to each other. And at one point they touch, they touch hands. And at first they wince a little bit, like, oh, I'm evaporating, I'm getting doused. But then they touch again and they just kind of like hold it there. And they're sort of kind of trying to teach the lesson that like, hey, just because this thing is different or scary or whatever, it's not necessarily something that you have to avoid because you're a fire person and this person's a water. You're a Leo and they're an opposite sign that they isn't supposed to mesh. You know what I mean? It kind of tries to break down that barrier of what you think isn't supposed to go together and what can go together.
Yeah, and I think it kind of just breaks all the, the things that we've always learned about certain things in life regarding, oh no, you can't be with this person, that you guys just don't mesh personality wise. It just don't work, because it's like, listen, I'll even bring my own relationship into this. My boyfriend and I'm an earth sign. Okay. So technically I'm an earth elemental. Okay. To make it about the movie. And he's a Leo. He's a fire. Normally, there are people that have warned me all the time, and I'm into the zodiac stuff. Okay. I already know this. Don't mess earth and fire. They don't mesh. They usually don't work out. And I have dated, literally my last 2 partners before him were Leos. They were the same thing, same exact month, Leos, everything. And I did not mesh with them well, but I've been with my current for a year and a half. We're moving in together. He drives me crazy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I will sit here and tell this man, you are irritating me. You are getting on my last nerve. But, and I'm sure I do the same for him, but we always find a way to make it work and complement each other. There's a way to balance things out. And I feel, a lot of times when somebody's like, oh my God, how did you stay? You're an earth sign. You're a Virgo. How did you end up staying with a Leo? How did you end up staying with a fire sign? And I'm like, listen, it's about making it work in the best way we know how. I know that I can play to his, can play to mine. And it
the other way to look at it too, especially through the lens of the movie, right, is you're more than your sign. You might have aspects of that, but it doesn't mean that's what defines you, right? Like, you're not just fire and that's it. There's more to you, just like there's more to him, I'm sure.
There's so many lessons in this movie that I'm just like, I feel like I've already seen people, like, not necessarily show the movie, but they're like, oh, going to see Elemental, and then like they come out and they're crying, and it's like.
So on that note, I'm not a big crier. It takes a lot to get to me, especially because I watch a lot of movies, so I'm like hardened to the core. Also a Leo, so we can't show that pain.
Yeah, you guys don't have that.
I did in fact cry at the end of this movie. Disney has taught me, if nothing else, they like to pull the rug out from under people just before they set the rug right back where they did it. And it gave you a really sad moment, and you're just like, are you kidding me? Is this really what's happening? And eventually they set it right, but like, I was fucked up for a second, and I'm sure other people that like you saw posting about like coming out crying, like, were doing it for the same reasons that I was. So if you go see this, you might feel moved. I feel like
because I'm not a crier either. I cried to, oh gosh, I think only one movie in my life, and it was when I was young, and it was Marley and Me. So for any of you who ever wanted to show me Marley and Me, don't. I will probably still cry. I've avoided the movie ever since.
I don't remember if Marley and Me made me cry, but if not, it was close. But either way, like,
passing in a movie, I can't. No, I have a dog of my own. She's my baby. Can't do it. Even in movies where I know that the dog is supposed to die, like I remember going to see some movie or playing a video game with my boyfriend, one of the two, and he told me that the dog had to die, like it was part of the theme, and I literally went like this, and I was like, tell me when it's over. I don't want to look.
Was it Fallout?
I think so. It might have been. I don't really remember.
Got a dog in it.
I saw a bunch of dogs, and I was like, oh, dogs, because I'm like that.
Oh, puppers.
Oh, babe, he's like, I have to kill these dogs. I'm like, no, you don't. And he's like, yeah, I do. Just cover your eyes. Just do. I have to. Part of the game.
Just look at the flowers.
Yeah, and I'm not a big crier. I only cry to things like that. And even Inside Out. Because like I said, I think there's a lot of similarities between Inside Out and Elemental that I'm already noticing without even seeing the movie. And Inside Out made me cry. Inside Out made me cry, specifically the Bing Bong scene, which if any of you haven't seen Inside Out, I won't spoil it, but the Bing Bong scene, people who have seen it know what I'm talking about. I cried so hard. I think I cried after the movie too. Like I actually just started sobbing.
I think what that really means is of these 3 movies, you definitely have to see Elemental to confirm, any of these comparisons that you're making with Inside Out, and see if like they're, they match up to what you're thinking, and B, to see if it'll move you in the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I have to see Elemental. That's like, pretty much any Disney movie that comes out, I have to see. Like any Disney Pixar, that kind of thing. I have to go.
I mean, this almost sounds like a 3 for 3. I mean, like if I was trying to convince you to see all 3 of these movies, they all sound like your reactions sound like that. At some point, you'll watch all 3. So
Yeah, I think I
I
would
mean,
see reasons.
I mean, if the point of movies in minutes is to convince or stay away, and I'm trying to convince today, bam, out of the park, 3 home runs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, all of these movies have really strong reasons to see them, even though they might be different. Because we talked about Flash, how I see Flash solely for the fact that they took a superhero and made him more human. They made him more emotional. They showed the more human side to like who he was before all the superhero stuff and before that he was this stuff. And the idea of who you are in your past and what happened to you is how you became who you are. If you choose to change it, or even if we all go back in time and change things, we would be different. It doesn't matter. You're always going to change things. If you change the past, it's going to change the future. You can't just change the past, everything work out in the way that you think it might either, because sometimes changing the past better might not make your future better. And that's not to say go get yourself traumatized. I'm not encouraging that. Don't traumatize yourself on purpose. Don't do that.
No.
Not for the plot. Okay. Don't do that.
No.
But
I think whatever traumas we have gone through or the scars that we have are why who we are.
Yeah, I mean, I myself can personally say that I have my own traumas, as we all, and I feel like as much as I could sit there and rattle in my brain, be like, oh, what happened if I went back in time? Everybody asks that question. Like, if I went back in time, I would have done blank. But at the end of the day, what happened to me, it made me who I am. The choices that I made me who I am. And I wouldn't tell, little Zoe that she did anything wrong. I would just say you did what you knew how to do with the strengths and with the tools that you had at that time. But now we have different strengths and different things that we have. So now we can take those and make other ones. And then 10 years from now, Zoe will have different things to pull tools from. So I think that not only Flash a little bit more real, a little bit more relatable, we'll say, but also raising that question of if you could go back in time, would you? And why? Could you guarantee things would be better? Is one of the reasons I would watch the movie alone. Because again, I love Loki. That's pretty much the only person I love. And I like him for his storyline. I don't like him because he's the villain. I like him because a lot of people don't understand why he was the villain. He was the villain because he felt very cheated in many ways. And he was seen as the god of mischief, but half the time he only wanted to be the greatest. He wanted to be the best, which there's nothing wrong with that. There are lots of people that are go-getters and overachievers and things like that, and they're shamed for being so. And he's one of my favorite characters for that storyline alone, just for him being more of a relatable human. So Flash alone, I would see just for being relatable and raising kind of important question of like, if you could do this, would you, and why? And as far as the Blackening goes, I would see that alone just for not only, a good question to something that I always grew up on being a horror fan of, like, that Black person dies first, but also the bigger kind of aspect of like, maybe we shouldn't normalize this whole race thing, judging who dies first. I think we should make it a little more personal. I think we should make it a little bit more of like, even simplified, in some cases of like,
maybe we just tell a good story, and who makes it and who doesn't make it is just in service of that, not something arbitrary like race.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think, even including more actors of color in films alone, I would go see it just to support that idea of like, listen, let's just put all of them in there. Let's make a film that's for them. That raises a funny question that, they all can either relate to, or they all have probably seen a scary movie where that happens, and they can make their own version of it. Again, same thing with The Little Mermaid. They made their own version, and it was beautiful. And Elemental, again, I feel like I've already spoke my piece on that, but I would see Elemental just for all of the lessons alone, and the Disney magic, and just the idea of everything being a little bit more balanced. Because I feel like even as an adult, there are Disney adults, but I'm saying even if you're not a Disney adult, like even if whoever's listening to this right now is, let's say you're not even a Disney adult, but you're thinking of seeing it, or you might, you're hearing all the hype that I'm saying about it, and you're like, oh, maybe. I would say that even as a regular adult who doesn't even like Disney, this could suit you. Like, even if you're a person with anxiety, depression, anger issues, things that maybe you struggle with, that you don't feel like you balance in the world. You don't feel like you can find, people are always telling you to, calm down or do this little thing and not be so anxious and not be this, not be that. And I feel like this would be a good movie to kind of validate your feelings as to, I can be who I want to be. I just got to learn how to balance myself out. I just got to learn that balance. I mean, somebody like me with anxiety, even though I'm a Disney adult, even if I wasn't, I could probably tell you I would still see the movie just because Inside Out gave me so much emotional and mental validation, because I would sit there and be like, it's okay that I have anxiety. It's okay that I get anxious because I'm scared that, this bug is going to, give me a whole infection on my arm. It might not happen, but I have anxiety. So,
let's hope not. Hope not. But you have been one of my most insightful, most engaging guests so far. I think this is like my 15th episode of this, and I'm really happy you agreed to be on.
Thank you for having me.
Love to hop on. No, totally. So now what happens, I mean, it won't be necessarily something we have to get back on camera for, but you definitely should let me know when you see some of these things. Let me know what you think. I loved it. I hated it. I got it 100% on the mark, and I can't tell you if you have or haven't until you watch them, because I don't want to spoil them for you. But thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Mind coming back after I've seen the films. I can text you and say that I've seen them and I'm ready to come back if we want to do that. That might be an interesting thing, but yeah, I don't mind.
Never say never. Never say never. I haven't done a post reaction video yet. Guess what? There's a first time for everything.
Yes. So also I will give you my links to put in the video, but just
of course,
we are still recording to anybody who's listening. So if you are interested, if you are in the CNY area and you are interested in the character princess thing, I work with Kate Devin at Caits Character Corner. I play characters, but there are so many other talented actors and actresses as well. We have a variety of characters. We just included Buzz and Bo Peep and Jessie. I will be playing Jessie. We actually do have a play date at Andy's. I'd have to send you more information.
I think I saw something for that. It's going to be in Rome, right?
Yes.
And it's that's awesome.
3. And it's going to be a fun time. We have other things set up too, but we have Rapunzel, we have Ariel, both classic and live action. We have Tiana, we have Alice Bell. Yeah, we have a bunch of fun characters. We have Mirabelle. She's always a blast. I love working with Mirabelle. We have a bunch of our friends. Who
doesn't love Encanto?
Exactly. We have a bunch of our friends over at Caits Character Corner. I also hung out with Barbie recently. She's very cool. But yeah, so if any of you in the CNY ever need a character princess for events, birthday parties, anything for your kiddos, just contact Kate Devin at Caits Character Corner. And as far as for me, I'm going to give my friend here all of my social medias. My main modeling is going to be the main Instagram that I might get, but I will also give you my princess account as well as my hair account, because I am a licensed cosmetologist that's moving to Saratoga. So even if you're from the Saratoga region, come hit your girl up. I will make you look so beautiful and we'll have fun. And maybe we can talk about movies while we're at it. So
definitely. So we'll make sure to put all those in the links for this video. Yeah. And again, thank my friend here, Princess Zoe, which is what I'm going to call you when I make the caption for the video. Consider yourself nicknamed.
I know. I wish I had my crown on hand. I don't even have my little crown with me. I would,
It's just it's translucent above your head. Yeah. You can see it.
It's a very updated translucent crown. It's like, the updated kind. You can only see it if you have Disney.
Well, thank you again, and we'll catch you guys next time in another episode of Movies in Minutes. This has been your host, Nabil Khan. Hasta